Hey, everybody.
Hello, hello. Sorry for being a few minutes late.
I hate the new vertical layout from Google Meet because I have to reach across to wave now. I can't wave out here. You can't see it. First world problems, right?
Pretty sure that's the only problems we deal with.
Yeah.
Let's see.
How's everything? How's everyone doing?
Doing pretty well.
Nice.
I haven't heard anything from RL, so I think there's Yusuf. So maybe give RL another 30 seconds and then kick off. Who wants to take to run the meeting and take notes after the fact? I can send them the recording from the meeting for that.
I'd like to boy out. I just have some childcare issues here in the background, so I'll be in and out a little bit on this call. Sorry.
I can do it.
Okay.
It's mainly going to be me pitching things on the back of our last meeting from 2 weeks ago. We only got halfway through that, so yeah.
All right, let's actually. Yusuf said he'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, we'll give Yusuf a sec. Give Farrell a sec. We're in no rush.
So I think just while we're waiting for a minute, I've added James as an assignee to your PR, Lawrence. So hopefully that will wrap that up and we can get that in and keep moving toward 111.
Oh, for the Azure backend.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I have it on my to-do list tomorrow along with 5 other PRs. I think I'm just reviewing PRs tomorrow and nothing else.
Such is the life of a maintainer.
Yeah. You mean I can't just put headphones on and code all day?
All right, looks like we're all here.
All right. Action items we have to discuss. Let me go grab them from our notes. Action items from the previous meeting, they were all done. This one's now done. Shared convo from LF about incubating is done. And then there were no other action items because I dominated the conversation with drop-in replacement stuff, I believe. Christian?
What was the result of the conversation with the CNCF?
I've not had the conversation yet. I've asked for one.
Okay.
So I need to just pin them down and book sometime. I think with the tag restructure still going on, it's a bit messy.
Okay. So we'll keep that action item for Nick, just until that, so we don't forget about it.
Sure. So before this becomes a meeting of me, does anyone have anything else they would like to add to the agenda ad hoc before you have to listen to me for a while? No? Awesome. Let's talk about Oracle first. I wanted to get this done and out of the way. So historically, we have had this issue within OpenTofu, which is for, this has been renamed a few times now, but adding the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure backend storage. So similar to how we have S3, Tencent Cloud, HTTP, etc., backends. Oracle Cloud would like their own backend. They have some technical reasons for this. They believe that they're calling their APIs directly instead of using an S3 compatible API is a lot better. And there was another reason that I can't quite remember. Something about not requiring an external service. So technical reasons are in the issue. This has been a long-standing issue. We've had a few different discussions around naming and if we should even accept this or not. So we have another issue. Let me grab it all in here. Backends as plugins, which is the concept of moving backends to a plugin-like infrastructure. The advantage of this is that we as the OpenTofu team don't have to maintain all of the different backends. Just for reference, HashiCorp has employees from each of the individual companies maintain some of the backends. So Oracle does maintain the HashiCorp Terraform backend. There are a couple of other alternatives upcoming. Pluggable state storage looks like it's on the horizon in the Terraform provider protocol. And we're seeing some issues and some discussions around this. And then there's also what we discussed a little bit early 2 weeks ago, and we will be discussing later today, which is my concept of new providers, where we may include a granular state storage in this system. But what I want to highlight is that all state storage in OpenTofu is kind of up in the air right now. We're not quite sure. We don't have a set direction of where we want to go, but we know that we want to improve our current situation. Oracle did go a little bit against our recommendations, our contributing guidelines. They raised an issue. This issue was not accepted. There was still some discussion ongoing about whether or not we should call it OCI. This gets confused with our OCI providers, OCI-based providers. But really, I believe that most developers would say that OCI is the Open Container Initiative, not Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. So we've had a discussion in the TSC in the past about if we were to accept it, should we name it Oracle-OCI? Should we name it Oracle? Should we name it something else to distinguish it? So that discussion didn't happen. A pull request was opened by them that for a long time didn't sign the DCO. So none of our engineers could review this. We believed it to have BUSL license code. And then last week, we got, within the span of about an hour, I think we got Slack DMs, a Slack message on our public channel, an emailing the entire OpenTofu team, and I got a LinkedIn message, I believe, from lots of people at Oracle saying, hey, when are you adding this? It's already in HashiCorp Terraform. When are you adding this? And I highlighted all of the issues that need to be solved before we want to accept a pull request. And I got into a meeting with them today. The meeting was very productive. Oracle are very happy to say that if they add the Oracle backend to OpenTofu, that they will support it and maintain it, and it will be owned by them. All issues will be handled by them. They are happy to go and say that publicly they are moving everything to OpenTofu. They are moving all of their internal customers across to OpenTofu and all of their internal usages of Terraform over to OpenTofu as well. So they want to have that feature parity with what's in Terraform. And they're happy to work with us on solving all of the issues with naming. Apparently they're getting a marketing and leadership department involved and to talk about what they're happy having. They really want OCI, and I kept telling them that that's not going to be likely. But I wanted to give you a heads up that I've written out the next steps for them. That is, they should follow the contributing guides. They should read our guidance on copyright. This is really important. They should sign off on the DCO. We need to decide what it would be named. We need to decide if they will own it or not. And the TSC, we should really, and what I'm raising this for here now, is we should discuss if we are happy accepting this. And I think the question that I want to pitch to you guys is if the naming and the maintenance cost issues are solved and the legal issues are solved with the DCO, would the TSC be okay accepting this, knowing that we do have backends as plugins or pluggable state storage or other backend improvements coming later? Eagle?
to avoid the necessary like silence, I think we should. And the reason why is Oracle is a huge player in the corporate world, and this will be a huge win if they're really going to promote like migrate, like if they follow their word, migrate the internal and external use to OpenTofu and make it public. I think the benefits of this alone would like overweight like any potential like future issues that we are not even sure about. Then they're also willing to like maintain it, which is probably will be in their best interest. And my assumption would be like, well, regardless of what we decide with backends and plugins, there will be still some period where we'll continue to support existing stuff. And we'll just give them an option to migrate if there will be any benefits to it, or even work together on the spec or testing or feature parity or whatever backends plugin. So, like, I believe that this is a no-brainer, and based on what I heard from you, we indeed should accept this.
Okay.
Yusuf?
Yeah, I would entirely agree. And I think anything that we can do to avoid introducing extra friction from a Terraform user using the OCI backend to an OpenTofu user using the OCI backend is good. So I assume that the natural path for somebody, let's say we get backends as plugins in the future, Terraform never builds it, they're an OCI user on Terraform, they're switching over to OpenTofu because OpenTofu is getting all their customers to switch over or whatever. It would be best to have just straightforward translation. Maybe the backend name changes, but the attributes are exactly the same, whatever. And then they can do a step 2 of getting to the backends as plugins. So seems like a win-win, and probably seems to be useful even post introduction of backends as plugins or whatever else we do.
Okay. So that does hinge on that conversation of if we can, the naming, if I think we were all in decision last time that OCI isn't going to work. So the naming would be the one change that changes between the backend. We keep all the properties the same.
Good question here on the naming.
Uh-huh.
Can we name it like differently, like Oracle CI or whatever, but add some alias so Terraform configuration will continue to work without need to change anything?
Christian?
I'm gonna take a different approach than what I've thought recently on the naming of OCI. If our goal is to move over to pluggable state storage or backends as plugins, whatever that form that takes within a relatively short period of hopefully the next year, then what we're talking about now is implementing what will hopefully soon become a legacy option. And if that is our goal, do we see any reason that we would want to add an open container initiative storage in the meantime while we're for what will become the legacy backend structure? Does that mean, if that holds true, that we're not planning or thinking about adding open container initiative as a traditional backend structure, is there harm in using the OCI name to mean Oracle?
Yeah, so this is the naming problem in that we have an issue open for OCI, Open Container Initiative, as a remote state storage backend as well. So I would like to find a way to differentiate the two. We could go and add an alias. We could go and make sure that someone can come in and put OCI, and we document everything as Oracle-OCI from a technical point of view. But I think it's user experience point of view. How do people search our documentation? How do people understand what an OCI backend is? This is going to cause confusion every single time someone types backend OCI or sees OCI in our documentation sidebar for state storage. And that's what worries me. It does the confusion that naming things vaguely can cause outweigh the ease of migration from Terraform to OpenTofu here. Yusuf?
So is the proposal for the open container initiative? Is that the I initiative?
I think so. Yeah.
Initiative name is the proposed name OCI, or is it container dash OCI?
There is no proposed name for this, but I think if we were to name one, we should name the other at the same time.
So it seems like we need to disambiguate both. So we could just have it so that the official documented name for the Oracle OCI is Oracle-OCI, and the container OCI is container-OCI. And then for the sake of easy migration, because it won and it got there first, the Oracle OCI is alias to OCI. So if all the official documentation would say Oracle-OCI, by the way, that's an alias of OCI for Oracle OCI because it got here first, and it makes migrating from Terraform easier because they use the name OCI. And then if folks want to use container OCI, they have to explicitly use container OCI because it lost the race and it got there second. Is that a fair compromise?
I think it could work, right? Like technically it can work. I think this is the kind of thing that we should maybe discuss on the issue. Although discussing naming on issues never goes really well.
Well,
my personal
I
opinion
think-
is that could work. So, yeah. Eagle.
I think discussing this like in the issue is just opening can of worms. I mean, like there will be like always a holy war there. So I think we should just like make a decision here, just then explain the decision in a issue and move on.
So
Otherwise, it can drag forever.
I will say, I just want to address this quickly, Christian. Sorry, I know you've raised your hand. Of the half an hour meeting I had, around 15 minutes of that was the guy talking about how all of their tools are called OCI and they really want OCI everywhere. And one of the things we have to actually think about is that we can try and name this and put it in, but if they are the maintainers of this, they can always withdraw if they don't like the name, which is a problem. So we may have to work with Oracle on the naming on this one.
Maybe we pitch Oracle-OCI and say that is our preference and see how they respond. And I guess maybe just so that we can continue on with the meeting, are there any options here that anyone is fundamentally opposed to? Any options here that are untenable for anyone on the TSC?
I personally believe you should not call any of them OCI. You should have a clarifying container OCI or something similar, and Oracle OCI, and then I'm fine with aliases.
Yeah, I
Like,
think
for
alias
instance-
we can use like a bargaining chip. So just like, hey, we'll call this Oracle OCI, like, and they will push back probably. And then like, hey, how about like we'll call still Oracle OCI, but for these reasons, but we will add an alias to help with migration.
Are we all reasonably happy with that, with proposing that back to Oracle and seeing how they respond, and then continuing to iterate either in the next TSC meeting or offline?
Sounds good to me. Awesome. Nice and easy. Is everybody else, by the way, happy with Oracle maintaining this part of the code? And just for reference, if people do have questions, I believe the advice that we got from somebody is that we can accept code submission that has already been submitted to HashiCorp Terraform if it is coming from the same author and that they have signed off on the DCO and they are aware of all of our copyright rules. We need to be very careful with this, and we will work closely, and I've already told the management at Oracle, we work very closely with them to ensure they have training on what is accepted and what is not, and how the right way to do it. Because what may be interesting is future iterations where a bug is reported in HashiCorp Terraform and the maintainer submits a fix to both. Are we okay accepting that? And I think we are, but it is going to be a little bit against our current flow.
Can whatever agreement we make them with them, can we possibly make sure that they put it into OpenTofu first under our license? I don't know how that helps or not, but
That's a politics game, that one there. I
yeah,
can talk to them and see what we can do.
yeah.
That may be easier legally. Use it.
For both us and HC. Because HC can use our code if they want to. Again, as long as it's properly licensed.
Yeah, I would just say maybe the carrot to offer there is that it would expedite review if it was it was contributed to OpenTofu first, because then we don't have to evaluate the legal implications of accepting the code, because they're already struggling with that. So pointing out to them, this makes your contributions accepted faster.
So this is an interesting one, and the reason I think it's a politics game and not a legal game here is, I think the reason that we won't accept HashiCorp contributed things is because of the business source license, and we are legally restricted. I don't want to speak for HashiCorp, but there could be a world where they don't want to go and put the license header of the OpenTofu authors in their code base. And this could cause some issues. So I think
Just for like my own indication, like why this can cause any issues.
well, I don't think HashiCorp would want to have that license header in their code base.
Will they have a choice?
Yes, if it is accepted to HashiCorp Terraform first, and I'm not a lawyer, if it's accepted to HashiCorp Terraform first, then it's not licensed under our code. Although I don't know if this counts at the point of PR submission, commit time. Maybe we should go and seek some advice on this.
Yeah, go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I was just going to say we should probably seek actual legal counsel. But in addition, if Oracle are very keen to move as much as possible over to OpenTofu, maybe they're in favor of just preferring that as an option. So there's both politics and just making sure our legal side is lined up.
Yeah. They told me they have a big drive to move to OpenTofu, and because of the licensing issues impacting them, and they have a huge drive to do this, but they also have a relationship with HashiCorp. So I'll talk to them. Maybe this is a non-issue. Maybe we're trying to preempt some issues that don't exist.
That's good.
Okay, and then on the back of this, Lawrence, you asked in the chat, are there any what are the desires when naming in OpenTofu generally? I can enumerate compatibility with Terraform, disambiguation with all the technologies, etc., etc. Naming is hard in programming, and I don't think we have hard and fast rules about anything, especially when we inherited a large amount of code-based documentation and features. I think we've said consistency is key. And Christian's not allowed to name anything, as he said in the chat as well. We always try and be consistent. I think one of the rules that the maintainers try and follow is, if I was to intuitively add this parameter, where would I expect it to go? What would I expect it to be named? And so, yeah.
Just to make sure that we're closing this loop here, should we formally vote on accepting Oracle stuff pending decision on name and whatever, like other things on the ticket?
Yeah, I think we can
I
vote.
think. Okay.
Thumbs
All in
up.
favor?
Oh, Yusuf raised his hand. Did you want to discuss something first?
No, that was a raised hand of approval.
Okay. Arel?
Errol? Do not accept? Oh, okay.
Can you give us a clear? Is that a yes or a no? You're fine with it or not?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay, just
So
check
unanimous.
because there was mixed signals.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought you said objections.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Next item in the agenda, unless anyone has anything else to discuss about Oracle on the back end.
I just do want to call out that I know Oracle specifically is like really likes their trademarks and finds a lot of value in like maintaining their trademarks, and that's just one more thing we should keep in mind with how we name things, whether or not we lose support from companies because they perceive less value from losing trademark
Yeah.
usage.
I know I'm about to get involved in a lot of email chains with upper management and marketing over Oracle, so we'll see what they come with. They were very strongly saying they just want OCI and nothing else. So we'll see. Okay. Not this tab. Sorry. This tab. How to move forward with clarifying the messaging on our website. Christian, you raised this issue, but I believe this is in general just about everything we discussed last meeting.
Yeah, to clarify, we discussed that we wanted to figure out how to clarify the wording, and we were all in agreement that it should be clarified, but what process we take to do that. Is it on the maintainers? Are marketing folks from different companies going to get involved? How do we want to just move forward and close the loop on that?
I think I'm the only person who ever edits our website, so is it on me? And I just get it approved by people who are here?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
cut PR and then ask for a double check if you want. But I have faith in you. I think you're going to follow what we discussed last time.
Cool. Action item for James then.
More of those. We love them. Okay. New OpenTofu providers. We slightly touched on this 2 weeks ago. There is an RFC open for this. I apologize for anybody who read the 7 RFCs in a trench coat pretending to be one. But Christian raised some of these things, so I am proposing that we implement a new type of provider. We had some discussion around this. This allows us to be more flexible with future feature implementations. OpenTofu will able to add new features, and that it allows us to innovate. I think a lot of these are very similar items, Christian. But I'm actually working on collating a list of all of the features that this may unlock within OpenTofu. I have opened an RFC for this, and then before I get into elder actions, Igor's raised his hand, so we'll go to Igor.
Yeah. Let me a couple of thoughts. So again, like from reading this RFC, it's like from the technical perspective, I understand all the desire for the team to work on this and understand the flexibility and features, etc. But thinking purely from the product, like thinking as OpenTofu as a product, not a project, then purely from product perspective, like for the end users, like it's still unclear what the actual value is. Theoretical, so like if we can clarify more about like what benefit it will give specifically, that could help a lot. Tonight, actually yesterday, after reading this again, I have another thought during the night, which I think is more critical. Let's say we add a new type of OpenTofu provider, and it has all the amazing cool features like batch requests and unmanaged resources, and everyone wants it. And now our GitHub is exploring with like, hey, can you please add this to Azure fucking provider? I want to do this batch requests. I want an Azure provider to support all this stuff. So how we can make like Azure, AWS, and other stuff to support all these cool features. So like I'm pretty sure like we cannot just throw this in Lawrence to like, hey Lawrence, implement this all for the Azure backend provider.
I mean, I'll
Because
try.
think this, yeah, this will happen, and I'm not sure that we are actually in a position to maintain or even do anything with like this top big cloud providers to support this stuff.
Okay.
So how, like, any plans, like how are we going to handle this?
Yeah, sure. So I can address both of these. So the first off about the value is really important, and we do need to identify this. Part of what I have been putting together, I've drafted a document somewhere. Was it a GIST, Christian?
I believe so.
Yeah, it was. I just found it. Okay.
If I'm thinking about the thing you're thinking about.
Yeah, I've been drafting a document about putting together a working group to discuss OpenTofu new providers, and part of this is to talk about everything the new providers can bring. What are the goals that I would like to do? I wrote up a lot of stuff. There are some technical goals. We should be defining a protocol, etc. But one of the things I do want to be doing is defining all of the features that can happen. We often, as maintainers on the project, look at issues and think this would be great, but it would require a provider extension. This would require a provider extension or change the provider protocol. And this is a common thing that we come across as maintainers when people are doing feature requests, that we wish we could do it, but we can't right now. And what I want to do to display that value to the TSC and other people is to collate a large list of all of these different items where we could have done something if we had the new provider protocol. Does that answer the question about value? Is like, I'm working on it. I'm going to do the best I can.
It doesn't answer the question, but it's answers us like we have a plan to figure this out.
Yes. Yeah. As for the second question, this was talking about people wanting extended functionality. Sorry, before I go off on the second question, Yusuf, you raise your hand. Did you want to discuss the first one?
Well, just related to that point from Igor, something we do for Terra RSCs is we have like a section for a mock press release. AWS does this too, where you just put together a mock press release announcing this functionality, and that helps frame things in the perspective of what is the user excited about in this new feature that you're introducing. And we might want to introduce that to OpenTofu RSC template, etc., just so that we can focus on how do we communicate the value to users when we think through new adjustments to the tool.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of areas where the tool can bring value, and I can go and write up one of these press releases, right? I think what Igor is hinting at is the same thing that I've been given feedback from some peers in a lot less nicer words, is that it feels like what I wrote in the RFC was trying to make excuses for why we should do this instead of displaying actual value about why we should do this. And I just need to write down the actual value. And there's lots of value for this, but it does feel like what I wrote was very performative.
Yeah, actually, it's a nice way you put it. This is exactly what it is, because it has a feeling of sort of wishful thinking of like, hey, we just made this like huge refactoring or whatever, and now suddenly we can do all sorts of magic. I would very much prefer to like focus on the magic first, and then what should we do? Because like, I would also like challenge the idea of like, hey, we cannot do X because we need to change the provider protocol or whatever. Because in my experience, usually the answer is more complicated. Is like, we cannot do it perfectly without changing the provider configuration, like provider protocol, provider register, but like it's possible. But like, again, like it depends on the features. But here, like also like by itself, like I'm not sure that there's much value in this thing by itself, but if we can combine with some like flagship features, so like we making these changes to be released, this like flagship feature that everyone benefits, that changes the narrative. Yeah. And now it's actually makes it, we're talking more about magic and not about like some like technical stuff.
That's really valid. You mentioned about I might be saying the same thing Christian raised his hand for, about how usually it's that we can just use the existing provider and hack some stuff on top.
Maybe not usually. It's like generally
Yeah.
like there.
I think from my gut feeling, and I don't have the statistics to back this up, maybe Christian may, I think we're hitting the limit of those kind of feature requests. I think there are only so many things that we can do with the existing provider set.
Yeah, there's, off the top of my head, at least 6 issues within our backlog, likely more, just 6 off the top of my head that are, this can't be done because of limitations in the protocol, that we would like to do. And I think James keeps calling them new providers. I also think another apt way to put them is extended, OpenTofu extended providers, because it is the goal is a superset. And there's like going to your, this kind of goes into your next question of, well, we have this AWS provider and we want this additional functionality, and we don't want to rebuild the whole thing. Having the ability to extend existing providers in code and add the new functionality alongside existing provider binaries is something that has been talked about as part of this RFC.
Yeah,
makes sense. And the last one is, and it gets very much depends on the magic of the flagship feature. But if we'll identify this thing, like let's say, like just for the sake of this discussion, like it's batch requests, and let's say everyone wants it because it makes the things like 100x faster. Then maybe we can just, as soon as we identify this thing, we can just work proactively with certain, like with top 10 provider authors. I'm not sure that HashiCorp will be interested, but maybe we can find somebody on AWS side, on Azure side, Lawrence, our Azure god, to actually implement this so end users will have the value on a day one. So like we're releasing this thing, and also with it, we're releasing this functionality, like this magic functionality with like, we work together with all these partners to make sure that it's available from the day one. And again, in this case, it's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really valid. I think that's a great approach, and I definitely think we should play the politics game, try and have some stuff day one. I definitely think all of our individual tacos as companies can also implement some things. We have a large user base of OpenTofu users who can pick up. What if Scalar wrote their own middleware or something that allowed you to tie in deeper to Scalar's reporting?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's lots of things that you can do. I also believe that it's in the best interest of OpenTofu to ship some providers that act as like utility providers. And I actually think these shouldn't be done in the OpenTofu namespace, but under like a different OpenTofu GitHub org, maybe. So batch request is a really good example. I would love to have a batch request shim provider. So as an OpenTofu provider that will proxy requests to a traditional Terraform provider and handles the batch requesting for you. And in this situation, we can then provide extensions on top of other providers. So if our new OpenTofu providers can call existing Terraform providers, we can extend them with functionality. So you end up with an AWS extensions and a Google extensions if we want to, and we can go down that route, or we can make a generic batch request shim extension that will allow us to proxy out to another provider. Christian.
So I think it's, the main thing I'm worried about this discussion is going too deep into the weeds.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of steering this in a different direction. I think by bringing this up, you're not necessarily asking, should we do this? And more so, how should we, at a high level within the organization, refine this feature? And I think your proposal to that was a working group, and using this as an opportunity to figure out how we do working groups. Because if we try to refine this feature a little bit every 2 weeks as a large group, I think it's going to it's not going to go anywhere very quickly. But if we figure out how to do a working group, how to break up that work so that this can happen asynchronously, both within like with members of the TSC and with members of the community, to try to move a large project like this forward, I think that's what I would like to get out of our discussion today, even though I know this is your item.
To have discussions just like this one. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. Aaron?
Yeah. So, yeah, if I understand correctly, it's not at all for whether we should do it. It does sound like something we should investigate. That's for sure. It can be very powerful. It's more to the matter of how do we do that. I think we have an RFC for that, right? Up, or is it mostly you have one for the new providers?
I have a draft RFC for this.
A draft, yeah. So, well, it kind of depends, and I think you guys will also have good input, you and Christian, regarding what you think might work in the team. But it does seem to me like there needs to be some outline of how this should work, and then there's going to be a bunch of unknowns, and then maybe we have that's where we have the team pick up a couple of people, go through those, and then each person tells you, okay, this is how we can resolve that, and you review that and make sure that this is correct, and then you can, after that, you could just work as a regularly. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach. Roger?
Possibly along similar veins, is there any one of these that we could potentially put out as a bit of a POC, come gain some feedback on the approach? Like, I don't know how simple or difficult any of these would be, but even like a fairly trivial kind of dummy one that would be like, well, here's an idea we're thinking about. This is how it actually plays out in reality. It obviously takes time to build out. But,
So, I do have, and I know the moment I start sharing this, that Slack will close because that's how it works. Oh, I can't find it now. I do have somewhere a screenshot of implementing a provider in TypeScript, so I can highlight how much easier it is. I can't find this one now. But we can definitely go and put out a proof of concept about some of this. Hacking in a new type of provider took me about a day and a half. I have resource creation and data sources working perfectly fine. Adding functionality like batch requests is going to be a little bit more work, but it's something that we could go and implement. I can go and implement middleware today. That's not a problem.
Okay.
I've already got a proof of concept for middleware somewhere, but it's not. It's hacky, and it was from a hackathon, and I don't expect to ship any of that code.
Yeah, the idea would be like it wouldn't necessarily be shipped, but it would be like, here's something we're thinking about. Here's an actual idea.
Yeah.
And can you use it? Make use of it, as opposed to just an idea. Like, take it one step further.
Mm-hmm.
For significant change that feels like a possible, value to the time taken to do that, to gain significant feedback from the rest of the community.
Yeah. All right, we've got a lot of hands raised. Christian first.
So I guess part of my question still goes back to, if we decide to spin up a working group for this to try and refine a large feature as a group, or as a subset of this group who has the time to dedicate to it, and get community members involved with it, what would that look like? And is there prior art we should be pulling from on how to do this? Because we're not the first open source community to try and take on large projects. Is there existing prior art that we look to for how groups like ours tend to refine and prioritize large workplace?
If no one wants to answer this one, I do want to say that I based the working group on the tags from the CNCF. So I think we should have that kind of approach.
I don't really understand, Christian. Like, are you asking like what structure makes sense for a working group? Like,
Yeah.
don't you just like pick a bunch of people to be in a working group and then they decide amongst themselves how frequently to meet and like what they need to resolve to solve a problem? You muted yourself.
Sorry. I'm asking practically what this would look like if we were to set something like this up. Because there's lots of things we would like to have working groups for, or something of this shape, in order to refine large pieces of functionality that we've kind of, when they come to the TSA, they just kind of get stuck because this is more of a meeting to make decisions and to do minor refinements, but trying to take a large piece of work like this, a large proposal like this, and get it into shape. It's not just a James goes away for 2 weeks and figures it out. It is we need to have a group that looks at this from a variety of different angles and figures out how to pitch this as part of the product, as something that the community can help with, as something that solves these real problems, and figuring out how to have that discussion, how to organize this working group, and how to move forward. This is kind of what I'm asking, instead of discussing the individual details of new providers, I guess.
Okay, if I could propose a system, maybe if an individual decides that they could really benefit from a working group to address an issue, or you or somebody else in a leadership position decides that a problem is hairy enough that a working group is the right forum to address this, a leader is assigned or volunteered to be the leader of that working group. They will solicit members of that work, or they will solicit volunteers to become members of that working group and organize a cadence for meeting with that working group, and put together like documentation, meeting minutes on their sessions, so that they are the ones responsible for deciding how often to meet, what they're going to discuss, etc. And you kind of let it become a grassroots process. So I would suggest, like, the amount of structure you need is a mechanism for electing and or volunteering a leader of a working group, and then that person should figure out what to do, and they should try to document as much as they can what they've done, so that there's prior art for the next person who wants to do the same thing. Good process. Do we vote? Approve? This is TSC approved system for working groups.
Sounds reasonable. Amendment,
I was going to propose on the back of this that you post, or the person who does all this, it's probably going to be me, posts all of the notes and organization in the OpenTofu org repo, so it's alongside all our TSC stuff. Christian, you were going to say, sorry.
That's literally exactly what it's.
Okay. Great minds
Well,
thinking.
and on a high level, so for these large items, there's a proposal, like some like semi-baked RFC. As TSC, we decide like, hey, like we given a green light for like a working group to work it like in more details. Then when we can, and the result of this working group work should be one or multiple RFCs, or broken down RFCs that are ready to kind of like be implemented. And then we as TSC voting like, yeah, let's implement this. We're not discussing technical details. We kind of like just approving or disapproving, prioritizing or deprioritizing this RFC to move forward as soon as it's filled with all the details. So that will be our process.
Yes, and I think it's important that I want to use this as like a smaller working group, because this is a good example of doing it a bit more than we should replace backends and do large amounts of orchestration as a working group discussion. That's a bit more vague. The part of the reason I want to do this as well is, and the reason I split up my RFC in the way that I did, it's okay if some of those parts don't get implemented. It's okay if some of those parts get replaced with other RFCs, and you can spread out a lot of this work to parallel systems. So we can talk about the protocol in parallel to the new features. We can talk about how end users will download the providers in parallel to everything else. So yeah, I think the end goal should be RFCs for each of those individual components, but I also think it's okay if the end goal is that we don't do something. I always think in product discovery that you should be ready to say that it's not needed. But we should explore it.
Absolutely.
For people who wanted a sneak peek, by the way, I did find the screenshot that I had. I put it on Slack. I don't know if you can read the text. Igor's getting real close to his screen. So no, maybe this. But on the left, I have some Terraform or tofu configuration. Sorry, in my head it's TF. And on the right is one single TypeScript file where you can define a server, a provider-defined function, and then lower down I have a data source that allows you to go and fetch things. And this is all of it, 78 lines of code to go and define things with full schema using Zod.
Wait. But where's the implementation? Oh, it's just.
I'm also shipping a TypeScript SDK. Those are the implementation, and there's OpenTofu code to go and talk to that TypeScript SDK.
Don't you need state management here in comparison? Like using the D dot, I forgot how you do that, to set ID and stuff.
Yeah, a little bit. This is just a proof of concept, just getting things going basically first.
Because without it, it looks so clean, but you have to do that. So
yeah, the idea is that SDK will abstract out a lot of that knowledge. This is what an end user.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Yusuf.
Yusuf.
Yeah, just to call it out, I think this is really what you want to focus your end user value on, that it's democratizing provider construction. So as an end user, if you know nothing about the gRPC ecosystem or how to protobuf anything, you can get started with minimal tooling. I think talking about batch requests or proxying things into other providers, those advanced features, I think are going to go over the heads of a lot of end users, and maybe those are better emergent qualities of this functionality.
I've received feedback that I should do the inverse of that actually, as well, which
I
is
actually
really interesting.
I want to play devil's advocate here because there's not that many providers are not modules, so they're usually there are top 10 providers used by 90% of the users, and then some niche and unique providers for specific SaaSes. It's not the provider writing community is huge and thriving, and actually maybe because it's hard to write providers, but I actually have zero proof here, but I doubt that if it will be super easy to write providers, the suddenly 10,000 providers will appear, etc. However, some of the features that were mentioned, like batch requests, this I actually can give actual benefits and value to the most of the existing community and users who just want things to run faster, more stable, or easier to write the Terraform code, and they don't really care about the providers, what language, whatever, or even safer, for example, in case of some security stuff.
Yeah.
So I would actually agree that it should be presented as inverse of that, as James put it.
I do think Yusuf is right, and I agree with Yusuf very strongly. I was thinking democratizing and showing that it's easier to write providers is the right way to go, right? And that is for the persona of not provider authors for AWS or I don't know. I always say Proxmox or NeonDB because I don't like those providers too much. but it's more about people writing internal providers or very quick things. But also now the word provider is expanding to all of these new features that can come along as well. I got told that I shouldn't focus on providers being easier to write because we're in the world of AI and everyone's just vibe coding providers anyway. And so we shouldn't be worrying about lowering the barrier of entry. I do kind of agree with this. I know there is a lot of AI hate lately, but there's also a lot of AI love. If I was someone in an engineering company who needed to write a Terraform provider quickly now, vibe coding one is a valid way to go, I believe.
The point I was getting at is more that, like, I think batching requests, etc., might be the pitch for using the OpenTofu native std.io version of providers, etc., as opposed to the gRPC one. Like, that's the comparison between those two versions of the provider. But the feature set itself, it's like a more flexible, democratized, powerful implementation of providers, and look how easy it is to get started. Like, I think that is a good pitch to get people to try it out, and then you get, like, instead of having the theoretical, like, here's how amazing it could be if you leveraged all the features, you could say concretely, when you use the AWS provider that uses these features, it's so much faster. It does like a bunch of requests at once. Look at that.
Yeah. Focus on the results. Lawrence, you raised your hand. I'm also aware we've got 3 minutes left, so
Sorry, I'll be quick then. I think that we shouldn't avoid making things easier just because someone could do it poorly. I would say that I really like the middleware concept and doing things in TypeScript, and I think that's kind of delightful. That's my 2 cents.
I think that's a very charged statement to say do things poorly versus vibe coding, right?
I mean, but isn't vibe code? Sorry, I'm gonna stop.
No, let's not carry on with the charged statements. I think it's a valid way to go and do things if you're an experienced person behind the wheel.
On that note, just to say, like, what is and isn't a charged statement is just to keep in mind, like, from a brand perspective, like, HashiCorp went for years saying that, your PRs are not mergeable into Terraform for whatever reason. Maybe it's because they know better and you shouldn't have this feature introduced. Going in the direction of democratizing, go in the direction of you can build it yourself and we'll give you the tools to empower you, does kind of align with the brand.
Yeah, it's giving the community what they want. Yeah. Okay, so I think the action item here is on me again to go ahead and go and set up this user group. I will put some information out about that over the next couple of days and grab. I'll kind of invite to everyone at the TSC. Maybe we'll do something in US time zone. Who knows? I can stay up late, I suppose. Yeah. Does anyone have anything else they would like to discuss in the last 2 minutes? I'm very sorry you had to listen to me for so long.
Quick question. When one of us goes on vacation and it won't interfere with the next TSC, do we have to bring it up? Like for emergency TSC things? All right. No, we're good.
No. Hopefully we never have emergency TSC things.
Well, if anyone's curious, I'm going on vacation. Thanks for asking. I'm going to be in London, actually, for the next week or so.
Is London a vacation?
Well, so maybe.
Well, I hope you get some time to see the sights. It's a great place. So, and the weather's not going to be too bad, I think.
I live in a swamp, James. It's going to be beautiful.
Oh, it's going to be like 21 Celsius tomorrow, next week. Sorry, so it's not too bad. Okay, all right. I think we can wrap everything up here, unless anyone has anything else at all. No. All right. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks.
See you later, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.